Hey, I'm John Tabler. Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about making starter. More specifically, problems when you're making starter. And what is a starter? Well, a starter could be compared to a battery jump starter for a car, but with food or with bread. When you ferment sourdough, you're going to need something that's already been fermented that has the energy to do it, already made, because once you have it made, it will ferment the dough overnight, but it actually takes about 3 to 4 days to really make a good starter. And so you want to have that made first. So it's very simple to make a starter. You just take flour, which is ground up grain, and you add water to it. So you can take 3 heaping tablespoons of flour, just like that, and you'll see that you have about that much. And then you add water to it. And this is reverse osmosis water. And you just pour some in. You definitely want to use purified water because you do not want chlorine in it. It will not work if you have chlorine. And you don't want it so thick that it's like Play-Doh, but just enough so it's kind of like a slurry, or a very, you could pour it, but not quite. So once you have that made, you set it aside, and you can put plastic over the top just like these are, and then you come back in a day and a half. I've noticed that a day really isn't long enough, the first part that you add to it, but a day and a half will have that to start getting sour. And at that time, then you add that much more flour again and some more water. You stir it. You come back in another day, or a little bit more than a day, and you do it a third time. You add that much more again and water. You stir it. You come back, and it'll be sour like a lemon. But when you taste it, and the main thing is, though, when you come back the very first time, if you take the plastic off and you smell it, it should smell sweet and appetizing. Sweet meaning like appetizing, because when you taste it, it's sour like a lemon, but it smells good. There's nothing that puts you off. It doesn't smell like it's rotting or anything like that. If there's anything like that, discard it and start over. There's something wrong. And I actually had some exactly like that. You have to figure out what's wrong. So I had some that I made, and I put the flour in, and then I put reverse osmosis water in it. And after I came back, even after a day and a half, and smelled it, it was like terrible. You wouldn't want to eat it. And a lot of people might think that's what starter is supposed to smell like, but it is not. If you taste it, it should taste sour, but appetizing. It won't be like you're eating something rotten. It would be like if you added honey to it, it would be almost like lemonade or something like that. And so what I had to do was figure out what went wrong. And so what I did was, I knew that it was either the water or the cup, but I didn't think that because I washed the cup pretty good, and it would have to be a pretty dirty cup to taint the starter, or the flour. So I was thinking it was the water. So what I did was, other than make sure my filters were good, and ordered some more of those, because you always want to check your filters in your water and make sure you're changing those regularly. But what I did was I took the same amount of flour and put in the cup, and then, what I did was I ground new flour, just fresh, perfectly fresh, and I put the same amount of flour in the cup, and then the same new flour that I ground, I put the same amount, and then I added reverse osmosis water, the one that I had in the bad sample, to this cup, and I used a purified water for this cup. And that was going to tell me if it was the water, and it was new flour. So when I opened up the purified water and smelled it, it smelled good, smelled fine. And actually, if you take a little spoon and you taste it, it's not bad. It's sweet. I shouldn't say sweet, it's appetizing, but there's a sweetness to the taste. It's actually sour, of course, like a lemon, but there's nothing that is bad. Let's put it that way. In the other one, I opened it up, and guess what? It smelled fine also. So that showed me that it wasn't the water, and so that showed me that it was the flour. The thing you have to know about flour is when you grind it, it's perishable. And so the flour that I used obviously had been sitting longer than I had thought. And so I had thought it was within a week or so, and it was much longer than that, the flour that I ended up using. Obviously, it had to have been. I'm not quite sure how long, but here's the thing, is when you go to the grocery store and you buy flour, if you don't have a grinder, it's going to be the same thing in the grocery store. Those grocery store sections with flour are very small. If everyone knew about the nutrition of fermenting and baked like they used to, it would be the biggest section in the grocery store. Hardly anybody does that anymore, so you have these tiny little sections with flour in them, and the flour can sit on those shelves a long time. In addition to that, they put it in paper wrapping, which doesn't keep out any oxidation or any, if they put soup in paper wrapping, that soup wouldn't last very long, if you think of it like that. So there are some brands that don't use paper. They use a polymer or something much more akin to a soup can that will keep it from degrading a lot longer. But in any case, they're going to have a date on the package, and they put that date on there because it's perishable. Of course, they put the furthest out date they're allowed to, so that's not really one you ought to stick with. You really just want to make sure you have fresh flour, as fresh as possible. And so you want to go either to a place that sells a lot of it, or you look very closely at that date. And also, when you buy flour that is freshly ground, usually it'll come from a place that does 100% whole wheat flour. They know about these type of things, but the other flours that are processed with chemicals and dyes, bleaches, I should say, they turn white and they have chemicals in them. Those will more than likely can cause you problems over time too. So you just want to make sure you have up-to-date flour, because obviously it turned mine into a situation where it was not good. And so anybody can have issues, but when you have the issues, just know that when you are making your starter, it needs to smell good and just taste sour like a lemon, but fresh. If it doesn't, discard it, get rid of it, and start over with another. Figure out if it's your water or your flour. And if you do that, you're going to have the best starter. You're going to make the best bread. You're going to love it. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.